Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. So I know it's our channel. Once a month it's our channel. Okay, fair enough. Okay, so welcome back to our channel. Thank you so much for joining us. I know that I had my wife on about a month ago actually, and we shared our story, and I know that there was a lot of interest to share our girl story. So we have a ton of questions that we kind of came up with, some subscribers submitted questions, and I actually asked on Instagram and here. So if you're not following me on Instagram, I will link that below, as well as my Facebook. It's Allison Wdwgirl. And I also, if you are not subscribed here, we would love to have you come back here. We are now trying to do a once a month, like LGBTQ, family oriented though, right? Sure. I don't know, what do we want to call this? Like,
I don't know.
The something corner, the Allie Leanne corner. I don't know.
We're not going to call it that.
Today we're going to be talking about our girls and their story and how we have so many things. How we chose a donor, what we chose to do, who carried, what else do we have?
Just like the decision
the
to
cost,
have kids.
Decision to have kids, meaning behind our girls' names. We aren't going to be sharing their birth story. I will be doing a separate Ruthie and Rosie birth story as part of the 1 month installment. We'll try to do more, but really it's hard for us to sit down and do these, but they're important and we think the representation is important, and so we do want to share our family and this side of our life with you other than Disney. So if you're looking for Disney content, you can go and find it. This is not Disney content today. And if you're looking for LGBTQ content, it is going to be happening once a month on our channel. So if you're subscribed, thank you so much for joining us, and let's get started. Okay, so actually a subscriber asked, did we always want kids, or did that develop over time? Did you always want kids?
Yeah, for sure. I always knew that I wanted kids. Well, we can get into this later because I've had multiple conversations with people about this. People are always really interested in this, but I never had that really strong desire to carry. I knew that I wanted kids, and I love kids. I knew that I wanted to coach the soccer teams and do all that, but I never imagined myself being pregnant or had daydreams about it or whatever people do. I don't know. And so I kind of just assumed growing up that I would adopt. So I always knew that I wanted kids, but carrying was never something that I was like, I must do that. And I know that a lot of women do feel that way.
Going into that, I always wanted kids, and I always knew I wanted to carry. That was really important to me, and we can kind of get into the genetics of it, but I know it was important to you to, if you could, have a child that was genetically tied to you, just like I wanted a child that was genetically tied to me. And going into that, Ruthie is my egg and Rosie is Leanne's egg. So if you couldn't already tell from pictures, I will insert some pictures below, but Ruthie looks just like me and Rosie looks just like Leanne.
But they have the same donor.
They do have the same donor, so that you can tell then who carried. I carried both girls. So we will get into that. That's part of the process that we went through. So we're gonna start though at the beginning. So we obviously chose to have children. We both always wanted children. I definitely think that I pushed you probably sooner than you would have thought to have them.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
You always wanted them. So, but I feel like once we had made the decision to start looking for a donor, we were you were just 100% on board, full train, let's go.
Yeah, I think it was scary because when we decided that we were going to start trying, you never know when you start trying whether you're going to get pregnant that time, the first time, or whether it's going to take a year. And so we'll talk about it, but I think by the time you got pregnant, I was 100% ready. But at the time we started trying, no, I don't think I was quite there yet. When we decided to start trying, I was in my second year of law school.
Yes.
And you were teaching. Right. And I think the first decision that we made was we didn't know how much it was going to cost.
Oh, right.
So and I think that, as I'm sure everybody knows, like money can get very stressful, and we made a decision that it was important to us to not have the money be like an added stressor.
Yeah.
It didn't want to be one of those situations where if it took us 2 years to get pregnant, we would be like, oh my gosh, this is so expensive, we're blowing through. So we didn't. So we just like, we saved up for that whole first year of law school and put a ton of money in the bank, and then never had a conversation about money again. We spent every single penny of what we saved up, we never talked about it.
For having kids was the most important thing, and we put it at the very top over everything else, and we refused, because infertility can become such a point of contention in relationships. We knew that, and we were like, money is not going to be an argument. This is already a high stress situation. We are not going to make money an argument in this situation. And I think when people ask me about the money and they're like, isn't this so much money? I said, the money never felt like mine. It never, because it had this purpose, it never felt like it was money that was supposed to be spent elsewhere. So how did we pick a donor?
Well, we picked a donor. I mean, we knew that you were going to carry.
Yes.
And we knew that it would be your egg. So I think initially we were looking for qualities that reminded us of me. And so there are several different donor banks across the country, and they all sort of give you the same information, which in addition to the regular like medical history and family stuff that you would expect is interests, what they're studying, what they're passionate about.
You can see their handwriting.
Yeah, like they'll answer questions. Why do you want to donate? Why is it important to you to do this? They'll talk about their favorite music or movies or sports or whatever. And so we started picking out people that were like really into outdoor activities and sports and puzzles and music. And
number one, like vials, especially vials of like highly sought after donors, go very quickly. And
so anybody that's like tall with green or blue eyes with a full head of hair, especially if they're like muscular or athletic, like you can imagine
sought after.
The way that it works is that they have to commit to donating for a certain amount of time so that there'll be enough vials for people to purchase. But because so many families want to use the same donor for multiple kids, and because you don't know how many vials it's going to take, when people buy it, you're not just buying one at a time. You could be buying like six or seven, and so people will like go up and literally get bought out like that day.
Yeah. And they do cap families, as far as we know. We know that they won't allow to donate more than, I think, 10 families, at least with the bank that we worked with. So well, what you mean is that if a donor is donating and there are 10 families that get pregnant with that person, then they will cap that donor, and that donor will be done. Obviously, the families can purchase more for siblings, but
they don't want there to be tons of kids out there.
But as far as the information is provided, obviously you get the stats, the health history, but you can also
physical qualities. Yeah,
but you also get like, we got baby pictures.
You can, this part is kind of a racket because everything aside from what I just mentioned, like you have to pay more for. So you have to pay more for baby pictures.
Yeah.
You have to pay more if you want to hear their voice. You can't see photos of what they look like now because they don't want you to like run into them on the street and know who it is.
And I think it's important to talk about anonymous donors versus open donors.
When we talked about it, I think we decided that it was really important to us to use an open donor. So there are open donors that when the girls turn 18, they can get in touch with that person if they want to. If you use an anonymous donor, they can never, we say they can never find out who it is. Technically, you could get on Ancestry.com and do your DNA, but you're not supposed to.
If they want to meet their donor once they're an adult, that's going to be a choice that we've left up to them. And that's going to be their choice as an adult. And we didn't think it was fair to make that decision for them.
Yeah.
We both know our biological parents, and if we had the choice, which we did, we think that they should be able to meet their biological DNA.
If they want to,
if they want to, and it's up to them.
Right.
And obviously, I know that there are people out there who choose anonymously, and they have their reasons, and we respect those reasons. These are our reasons for choosing an open donor. But there is a donor sibling registry, which we signed our girls up for, and I am actually in contact with a couple of parents who use the same donor as us. So our girls have some half donor siblings across the country, and we are friends with them on Facebook, and they're wonderful people. I wouldn't stay close with, but I know one of the moms.
Like their photos.
I really like them. Yeah, it's really fun, and it's fun to see like resemblances. Like all the kids have the same hands, which I think is like the coolest thing. I think it's so cool. I look at their hands right away, because that was the first thing I noticed when Rosie was born was, oh my gosh, she has the same hands as Ruthie. And when I look at their half donor siblings across the country, they all have the same hands. So what I assume is that the donor has these hands. They're pretty hands, but yeah.
It took several times for us to get
Pregnant.
I say us. I didn't do any of the work. Allie did all the work. It took a long time for Allie to get pregnant. And during...
It did. Side note, I will do my infertility story if you guys want to hear it. I was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome, and I also had a stage 4 endometrioma on my right ovary, which is now gone. And it was gone because I got pregnant.
But so we did 2 at home, and then how many in the doctor's office? 6 IUIs in the doctor's office, and then IVF.
And then moved to IVF.
So during that, it was like over the course of a year, how many donors did we go through?
I think we had 4 different donors.
Yeah.
So we tried for 4 different donor vials, and we ended with this
the
one.
guy that we liked. But it's also like,
it's interesting. Kids wouldn't be our kids.
It's weird and kind of emotional, because you get attached to these people that we don't know. I mean, you have like a couple pages of information about them and their baby pictures, and then you don't get pregnant that month, and you're really sad about that, and you can talk about it, but it's also like, then you have to go find another donor. And it's not like, I mean, people always want to know if it's like online dating, and it is and it isn't, but it's like, you're also, this is going to make up half of the genetic material of your children. So it's more than just, I mean, like, it's just kind of heavy.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I wasn't expecting, kind of getting attached to the donors that we would use, and then another month or 2 would go by, and then you'd have to find somebody new.
Okay, so as far as who carried, how did we decide?
You wanted to.
People are always like, man, didn't you want to? And she kind of talked about that before, but it wasn't a strong urge for you.
Yeah, so. I feel like I could have taken it or left it.
You would have
if I needed to.
If you needed to.
Yeah.
But there was never a point that she needed to.
Well, it took, so we did, like I said, 2 at home, and then 8 IUI.
6 IUI.
6 IUI. And then when it came time for IVF.
We did IVF. I was a really good candidate for IVF, because with polycystic ovarian syndrome, it means that I have a lot of follicles. I have a lot of follicles. I will talk about my infertility story in another video, but I...
How many did they take out? 30, right?
Yeah.
30.
They took out 30 follicles.
That's not normal.
That isn't.
And how many?
Let me tell you, I started the month with 54. So if any of you fertility people know what that is, I started the month with 54 follicles. And people would be like, that's absolute insanity. And it was. It was crazy, the number of eggs that I had. So I had 54 eggs. 30 were
taken out,
25 were mature, 17 fertilized normally, 10 were there by day 3, and we ended up with 5.
Right.
Plus the one that went in.
So you did a fresh transfer with Ruthie, so Ruthie was never frozen.
Yes.
And then the rest, what did we do with?
They're frozen.
They're frozen.
Yeah. So I have 5 frozen embryos.
So Ruthie was a fresh, it's called a fresh transfer.
Yeah.
And then the, excuse me, the month after
Ruthie was born.
The month after Ruthie was born, I was about to lose, I was teaching when we were in Michigan. The month after Ruthie was born, I was about to lose like a really amazing health insurance because I was teaching when I was in law school also. And
wait, my IVF was mostly paid for because they had passed something on our health insurance that covered the IVF process.
I had like the staff health insurance at University of Michigan, and the student union of teachers the like previous year had lobbied really hard for fertility coverage, and so we had like really amazing health insurance when it came to fertility coverage.
Because of my 6 IUIs I did and my fertility diagnosis, I qualified for IVF. They paid for 80% of that.
Yeah, that was clutch.
Yeah.
And so the month after Ruthie was born, we had like another month before we were going to lose the health insurance, and we went in and we were like, okay, let's just find out the number. How much would it cost for me to do the first half of IVF? So not the part where it goes back in, but the part where you take the eggs out. And it was like relatively affordable.
$6,400. And if you know how much IVF costs, it typically costs double to triple that. Yeah. So we were like, let's do it.
So we did it. So I did all the shots and stuff, and then they took out, how many did they take out? 10. They took out 10, and then we ended up with 5 also. So 5 of mine just went straight into the freezer, frozen, so that the embryos that were fertilized, embryos are fertilized, so the embryos that were in the freezer were like only a month later than Ruthie's batch.
No, they were a month after Ruthie was born.
Oh,
so
right.
Like
10 months after Ruthie's batch. Okay, that's right. And then, yeah, so 2 years later when we decided to have another kid, she just like went back to Michigan.
I went back to Michigan, and they just de-thawed Rosie.
Put her in.
Put her back in.
Isn't that crazy? So
but
now
that's what reciprocal IVF is. Reciprocal IVF is when one person does the egg retrieval and then the other person carries, and it's
really amazing.
It's really amazing.
It was really cool.
So like I obviously carried Rosie, I birthed Rosie, and I breastfeed Rosie. So.
But she's biologically mine.
She's biologically yours?
Yeah.
How did we decide on the timing of Rosie in regards to Ruthie? Someone asked me this. What? Weddings. It was weddings.
Oh, yeah. Logistically.
Honestly, we just had a ton of friends get married last year, and we had to kind of plan in between weddings. It didn't do anything because Rosie had her heart stuff, so I didn't get to go to the wedding anyway. Amy, I love you.
Yeah, that just goes to show that with kids you're never in control.
Parapluie.
Yeah, we had this like grand plan to get pregnant then, so the baby would come then, and then she needed open heart surgery.
She needed open heart surgery, so it didn't matter. We ended up.
But I
ended up staying home with the girls. You ended up going to the wedding.
I went to the wedding.
Yeah,
it's really fun.
It was awesome.
But I think in like a big picture scheme, we wanted to have kids like within 3 years of each other. I have one sister who is 2.5 years older than me, and we're 2 years apart. We were 2 years apart in school, and so we're like almost exactly the age difference that Ruthie and Rosie are. And I really liked that. I think that for the most part it worked out well.
I'll tell you, I wasn't ready to have another kid. I felt like we had just gotten through, like, Ruthie was sleeping through the night and she was doing all this stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed with having to do it all again. But you never regret having I don't think you ever regret having a kid. So
how would you say that Ruthie's pregnancy affected you? Ruthie's? What was the aftermath of Ruthie's pregnancy like?
I had really bad postpartum depression, which I mentioned on this channel. It's the reason why this channel started, was because I needed something to make me happy. And Disney makes me really happy. And obviously my family makes me really happy. I feel like that's very evident on my channel. But I felt I had really horrible postpartum depression. I got a great therapist, and she really helped me work through a lot of it. And she told me that I needed to start doing stuff for myself again because I had lost a bunch of, which I think happens to a lot of moms. You lose your identity in becoming a mother, and because of the postpartum depression, I was really scared to have another baby. I was afraid I was going to go through that all over again, and I couldn't imagine doing it all over again. And I didn't. No. I did not have postpartum depression at all with Rosie, which I thought was really good. I was really happy I didn't.
I think that just like the physical toll, like your physical recovery after Ruthie was just, it just seemed like it was really rough.
It was really awful. I just was in a lot of pain, and I had gallbladder surgery. I had to get an organ removed 8 months postpartum, or 8 weeks postpartum. I was still breastfeeding. I breastfed through the whole thing. I expected too much of myself and gave myself no breaks. And it was like, it wasn't healthy, and I was just really sick all the time, and so I was afraid that was going to happen all over again. It didn't. Obviously, Rosie had a very rough recovery.
But you didn't.
I didn't. No, I will go into the birth stories for both girls, but my recovery with Rosie was a cakewalk.
Compared to Ruthie.
And it was awful having a child in the hospital, but having a child in the hospital means you go home and you recover. So you still get to sleep. I woke up only to pump every 3 to 4 hours, so I was still getting good stretches of sleep that you don't typically get in that newborn stage. So if there was any positive outcome out of having a child in the hospital, it was the fact that I was able to recover and be a better mom for my kids. Okay, last question, and then we're gonna wrap it up. How did we decide on the girls' names? Were they named after anyone? In Jewish tradition, you name a child after someone who has already passed away, and you typically use the first letter of that person's name. So my grandparents who have died, Richard, and my grandmother who has died, Rebecca, both of their names start with an R. So I knew that I wanted to honor them in some way. Well, Ruth, the book of Ruth, and Where You Go I Will Follow, is something that has always been really important to us, and I'm sure many of you know exactly what Bible verse I'm talking about, but it's something that has always resonated with us. And so the book of Ruth is
and Fried Green Tomatoes is one of my favorite books and movies, so I liked the name Ruth. And something that it's difficult when you are trying to come up with, it's like picking a donor, picking a name, like it's something that they're going to have forever unless they decide to change it. But we kind of made the mistake in the beginning of telling people our ideas, and it was hard enough for us to come up with girls' names. Well, we knew we were going to have a girl, so it was hard enough for us to come up with girls' names that weren't like girls that were mean in high school or exes or whatever. And so then when we'd come up with names that we did like, and we would tell people, they would be like, oh, you can't name her that. I have a terrible aunt so-and-so who's mean. And so
honestly, we decided not to announce Ruthie's name until after she was born, because we didn't want the commentary.
Right. But every single person who we said, well, we kind of like the name Ruth, everybody said, oh, I had a grandmother named Ruth, she was the sweetest lady, or oh, I had a great aunt named Ruth. Everybody had like some old person in their life named Ruth who was like very kind, and so we liked that.
Yeah, and Ruth Bader Ginsburg is a household name in our house. We love RPGs, so that helped. Yeah. And then my sister, who is like, I love her so much. She's the best. Her middle name is Ruth, and I used to call her Ruthie when she was a baby, and that didn't hurt the situation either. And then Rosie was a little, for me, I always wanted to name, once we had Ruthie, I always wanted to name her Rosie. And I kind of talk about this in the 5 baby names. I talk about the Disney aspect of the name Rosie, which I'll link that card up above here.
Right in front of my face.
I will link that card if you're interested in the Disney aspect of her name. But honestly, Rosemary Clooney is someone that I have always loved. I love the movie White Christmas and love Rosemary Clooney, and I just think she's so classic and beautiful and perfect. And
everybody who knows us knows that we watch White Christmas year round.
We love movies. You guys know we live in Los Angeles. Like, she's a movie studio lawyer. Like, that's.
But we loved White Christmas before.
I mean, we've always loved White Christmas,
Yeah.
and Rosemary Clooney is just. We like old lady names.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
But we also liked that Ruthie and Rosie, like, their nicknames sound very similar, but Ruth and Rosemary, their
Pretty
actual
different.
names are different enough.
Yeah. So.
Although it was like day one, as soon as Rosie was born,
It was
we
like
were
Ruthie.
this was a huge mistake. Not really. But, I mean, I guess no matter what your kids' names are, you're always going to be kind of tongue-tied over.
Yeah. Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
So. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button, the notification bell. Make sure to keep an eye on the community tab because I am very active on the community tab. I typically only post once or twice a week videos, new content, but I am very active on the community tab and I'm trying to keep up with that every few days. And like I said, if you're not following me on Instagram, go ahead and follow me over there. Do you want them to follow you on Instagram? She doesn't post on Instagram.
This past week I did, and then you stole it.
It was a really nice post.
You just sent me a text that was like, I totally stole it, #plagiarism. That's what my wife said to me in a text message. Because I'm the writer. And so now I want all of you to know that very sweet,
it was Rosie's heart
very well written post did not originate with her. Nice try.
Whatever.
#exposed. If you are, like, this was our little chat about our journey, but if you're one of those people that's like struggling with fertility or you have more questions about our stuff specifically or anything else, like, I know that people have reached out about the donor bank stuff because it can get complicated, and like, we're always here to answer questions.
We are. You guys know you can comment. I try to answer within a week. I really do. Sometimes I'm like respond like that, and other times it takes me 3 or 4 days, but I typically respond within 4 days. But
I think in cases like that, the best thing is just to talk to as many people as you can, because everybody's experience is going to be a little bit different.
Totally.
And the best resource is just like
knowledge.
Hearing other people's experiences. Yeah, because it's always a little different. But
so on that note, have a great day. Bye.